But a lot of people, I'm sure, is familiar with the story of Hannah and her adversary, who is who? For those of you who've been is familiar with this story, Peninnah. I've been over the years. Some people say Penina, some people say Peninnah. Either way, you're not wrong. As long as we got the context of the story, and sometimes we may not pronounce things the correct way, but as long as we don't lie about the situation, that's what's most important. So, Peninnah. And so we have Hannah and Peninnah, and we have Elkanah, which I've always called him Elkanah. And so here in the text, to give us some background, or to give you what is going on in this text, especially for those of you who are not familiar. How many of us are familiar with it? And you show by raising hands in-house and by thumbs up with online. I'm gonna try to make sure I include everybody in this interactive Bible study. So we all pretty much are familiar with Hannah. Hannah is one who is barren, and she's married, but here's the thing, her husband has 2 wives. And I know that wouldn't fly today. Well, some cultures do, but not here in the United States. That's not even legal. Well, to give you some background on that, in that time, in biblical time, a person would take, especially in the Israelite nation, a man would normally take on a second wife if the first wife was barren. Because it was very important in those times. You know, sometimes when we hear about people having 50, 11 kids, we frown at that. Like, gosh, she got all them kids and all that kind of stuff. Especially if you see them at the grocery store and the kids running around and all that. We'd be like, she got a bunch of kids. And we look at it and we kind of frown upon it. But in biblical times, having a lot of kids was a sign of, it was a positive thing. The more kids you have, the better off you would be. And so what we see here is, that in this culture, a man would sometimes take on a secondary wife, not because he was, okay, I'm gonna keep, y'all always take me there. Not because I'm trying, can I, y'all want to just, not because he was just hoish, right?
Not sexual. It was
right.
To
but because he wanted to be fruitful, and that was the purpose of taking on a second wife. And here we see here that Hannah is barren. Okay, so it wasn't no pimp, and he was just having a bunch of women and all that. And it's nobody can say, oh well, if he did it, we can do that here. No, we cannot. And so he had 2 wives. One, it is believed that Hannah was the primary wife, and Peninnah was the second wife, the secondary wife. And she had kids. She had girls and boys. And so what would happen here in this narrative we see in 1 Samuel chapter 1, and before I go further, I want to make sure I'm paying attention to you guys out there. Is everybody with me? All right. And so what is taking place in this narrative is Elkanah and his family would go to Shiloh to sacrifice every year, once a year. And when they would go up, he was going up to sacrifice, right? Monica, I think you just taught on all the sacrifices a few weeks ago in your Sunday school. And so they would go up and sacrifice. Well, the thing about it is, every year that they would go up to sacrifice, the secondary wife would taunt, provoke Hannah. She would taunt her because of her barrenness. And remember, in that setting, it was frowned upon if you wasn't able to produce kids. As a matter of fact, people would think that something was wrong with you. You were cursed. And so this woman, the secondary wife, used the opportunity every year to taunt and point out her inadequacies. Every year. She would provoke her to the degree to where it was distressing. She was taunting her so much so to where it was affecting her physically and emotionally and spiritually. Are you with me? And so, where'd everybody go? So she, every year, when they would go up to the house of the Lord, again, this is a time of worship. This is a time for prayer. This is a time for sacrifice, because that's where your offerings come in. This was a time for fellowship, because there was an offering called the fellowship offering, which is called the peace offering. That is where you get to partake in the offering, and what that stood for was peace with you and God. There was different sacrifices that you would go. And so every year, like clockwork, this woman would taunt Hannah to the point to where she would weep, to the point where she wouldn't eat, to the point where she was just in distress, sorely distressed. Are you with me? So every year, like clockwork, it was like she was in this repetitive cycle that every year she would experience trauma after trauma after trauma, where this particular adversary, because the Bible calls her an adversary. And when we think about an adversary, what comes to our mind? Who is our adversary, right? Someone who wishes ill will on us, right? And so she would taunt, she would provoke. And when we think about provoke, do y'all remember that commercial? Jesse, can I use you as an example? I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. Remember the siblings? I think they were sitting on the beach. And you and your sister, you see that? And the one sibling would always say, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. That is a way, that is provoking. Because I don't know about you. If I was in that scenario with, well, Mama, we already know me and my brother used to bang it on out all the time. And if he or me was the one provoking, eventually it would end up where? Well, he would run and tell. Me, I would want to fight. I throw whatever I could find at him, right? How about you guys? Right? And so, hey Gina. And so she was constantly provoking her. And again, the Bible lists her as a adversary. And so this, in the same sense, that's what happens to us. We have an adversary that's constantly, I'm not touching you, provoking, taunting, always reminding us of our shortcomings, always reminding us of our inadequacies, right? I don't know about you, he don't play nice. The Bible says that his purpose is to do what? Kill, steal, and destroy. And none of that in that list has a positive connotation, right? Right? And so, what I need to point out is this woman, in biblical times, name meant something. They really mean something. They really, when you think about when people name somebody, they put a lot of thought into it, and names had meaning. Remember Jacob, the supplanter? But then he had a name change, Israel, and he was Israel, right? And so it's important for us to note that Peninnah, the Hebrew translation for her name, number one, it's a feminine name with roots in Hebrew, and it derives from the meaning of a pearl. I'm going somewhere with this. A precious stone, a pearl. And so here we have this woman where her name symbolizes a precious stone. When we think about a pearl, we think of beauty, right? Yes. Right? So here this woman Seems like she got everything going for herself.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty. Isn't that what a pearl is? Valuable, right?
Yeah.
And she's fruitful because she's having kids.
Mm-hmm.
She's married, right? Her husband is taking care of her. Seems like everything, she's got everything going for herself. So the question becomes, what is it about you? What's going on with you that you want to point out somebody else's inadequacy when you got so much going on for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Make it make sense, Monica. Your name means pearl. Your name means beauty. Your name means value. You're able to produce. But yet and still, you want to stoop so low and pick with somebody else, point out somebody else's inadequacies, point out somebody else's shortcomings. But before we judge her, how many of us are guilty of some of those same things where we got so much going for us, but we sitting somewhere calling somebody else stuff out, pointing out somebody's inadequacy, taunting people? Why do we do what we do? How we do when we do what we do? Bars. What y'all talking about on there? Yeah, she had all this stuff going for her. But can I teach?
Teach.
Can I tell you how a pearl is developed?
Yes.
A pearl is developed inside of an oyster. And what happens is there's this oyster, but then an irritant makes its way inside of an oyster. An irritant can be something as small as a pebble or a rock or some type of foreign object. It gets inside of the oyster. When we think about the word irritant, think about this. Have you ever had a little pebble in your shoe? Irritating, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You ever had an eyelash in your eye? Irritating, right? Before long, your eyes are red, you're watering, all that kind of stuff. An irritant is something that is very uncomfortable, right? It's there, it rubs you the wrong way, it makes you uncomfortable, right? And so this pebble or a grain of sand or something foreign would get inside of the oyster. And what the oyster would do, let me go back to my notes, I want to make sure I get this right. It would produce this secretion called nacre. And it's something that is part of the oyster's defense mechanism. What it would do is this secretion or this substance would be placed, or it would place itself over top of the irritant, this secretion. The oyster would produce this secretion, and the secretion would coat, there's the word, would coat the irritant. And over time, each layer, it would coat it and coat it and coat it. And what would happen over time, a pearl is produced out of that. So really, I'm going somewhere with this. What a pearl is nothing but an irritant that has had some layers of secretion from the oysters placed over it. When we see the pearl, we see beauty, we see value. But in the DNA of the pearl is an irritant. So could it be that she's beauty on the outside?
All right.
She has it going on the outside. Everything's going for her, but her DNA shows irritant. It shows taunting. It shows making people uncomfortable. Could it be that we are like her? Are we making people uncomfortable because of some kind of characteristic trait that we have going on the inside? See, something on the inside, the inside of the oyster, the pearl's inside of that. That's something that is inside of there. So when we look at pearls, what a pearl really is an irritant. So because I'm wondering, because I was wondering, like, well, why has she got all of this stuff going on? Why is she doing this? Have you ever seen really pretty people or good-looking people with bad behavior?
Yes.
Bad attitude.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
And so much so where you look at them at first and you be like, oh, they're pretty, they're cute, or he's handsome. But then as soon as they start opening their mouth and as soon as you start seeing how they moving, it's like, oh, no, you can have him, you can have her, right? That's right. What y'all talk? Okay, Lisa, you're saying we're not looking in the mirror, right? Hey, Donovan. Yeah. And hey, Jennifer. And so, yeah. I was wondering, why was she picking with this woman? But it's in her DNA. When you look at the pearl, you can't see the grain of sand. You can't see the foreign object. All you see is what became of it. Right? And so, here she is, taunting. Any questions? Y'all want me to stop? Y'all, any questions? All right. Who said it's called envy? Am I I'm way behind. That's right, Lisa. Hater, jealousy. Okay, good. All right. And so, where we find ourselves in the scripture, we're going to see Hannah's approach to this taunting. Here she is, barren. So when Penina, I just want to call her Penina so bad. I think I am. When Penina starts taunting her and starts provoking her, the approach that Hannah uses is the wrong approach. It says, look at verse 6 through 7. And her adversary also provoked her sore for to make her fret or distress, because the Lord has shut up her womb, and as he did so year by year when she went up to the house of the Lord, so she, Penina, provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. So what we see here is, we see here that Hannah took the bait. Because notice, who has the King James? Well, I do. If I'm not supposed to be in Chronicles. How'd that happen? Do you see where it says provoked? Does it have the ED in your translation? As in past tense?
For verse 6. For verse 6?
Yeah, mine does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, it says provoked, right? That means that she was successful in provoking. So in order for somebody to be successful at provoking us, that means that we had to take the bait. She took the bait. Obviously, she believed what was said about her. She was made to feel horrible. Isn't that what taunting does to people? Causes them to feel horrible, right? But she took the bait. How many times do we take the bait of what the adversary is whispering in our ear? You're not worth anything. You're going to be just like your mama. You're going to be just like your daddy. You're always going to be an addict. You're always going to be a hoe. You're always going to be this. You always going to be broke. You're never going to get a job. We as a people will always, you're never going to be worth anything in America. You're always going to be looked at as inferior. Is that the right word? Yeah. How many times do we hear that? You've done too much to be a Christian. Do we take the bait? I remember I was told years ago, everybody knows I have 4 children, and I was going through a breakup. It's just my truth. I'm just gonna have to tell. I be trying to be nice. This is my truth. I was going through, I hadn't gotten divorced yet, but I was on my way out. And this was my first marriage. And I was told that nobody was ever gonna want me before kids. When it was first said to me, I was like, whatever, because it was an argument. Whatever, you know how we do when we in arguments. But as years went by, I chose people who I settled for. Does that make sense? And so, although out of my mouth, I was like, boy, whatever. I know I'm gonna get me somebody else. But really, what happened is I internalized what he said to me, and it was manifested through the choices that I made, where I settled for relationships that was not up to standard. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. And so there's times in our lives where we have a real adversary, where people say things to us and we may not think that it affects us right then, because at that moment it may not affect us, but sometimes we take in stuff and we internalize it, and before you know it, we start really believing that stuff. Mm-hmm. You think I'm lying? Check some of the decisions that you have made in relationships. See how you have settled and lowered the bar. Because could it be that you didn't think that you was worthy to have anything different or better? So you have to be careful when we internalize what people say. I remember another person, when I first started preaching, y'all ready to laugh? When I first started preaching, I remember when I first got saved, I was so on fire for the Lord. I said, Lord, I'll do anything for you, for you, but preach. Oh, here I am, teaching and preaching. But that's what I said to him. And so that allows you to know that this is not something I sought after. There's people that really seek after preaching and all that. Let me tell you something, that's a whole nother ball game. You don't want that burden. If the Lord ain't called you to do it, don't do it. But here's the thing. I didn't seek after it. And so this allows you to know that when I had to preach my first sermon and sermons after that, I was so petrified. Because number one, my cousin hates when I say this, I wasn't real strong in school. Okay? Seriously. That's just what it is. That's why when people try to say, oh, you're such a good teacher, thank you, but it's all God. It's all God. Because on paper, And so when I would go to preach, the best way that I could describe it, not that I've ever been on death row, but I can just maybe imagine what people feel like. It was like when I would get up from the chair to go to the podium, it was like I was going to the death penalty. I was so petrified. And so when I would first try to speak, it was almost like my tongue would get twisted. I was so nervous and wanted to get through it so fast that I would stumble over my words. And so a person that used to tease me and said that y'all ready? Do not laugh. Okay, y'all gonna laugh, but don't laugh for no long time, and don't belly laugh, because then I'm gonna look at you side-eye. He said, oh, you the James Brown of preaching. I'm not laughing. Because you know who said it. I'm free from that, so you can laugh. Because I might have been James Brown then, but I will say that practice makes perfect, and over time, I'm not scared anymore. Now, I'm not saying that in a cocky way. Now, there's times where I be nervous. There's times where I'm still nervous, but I'm not nervous to the point to where I'm like, yeah. But when he said it, I laughed at the time, but each time that I would get up, that was always in my mind, like, you're gonna stutter, oh, you're gonna mess this up, you're gonna get your words twisted up, people gonna be looking at you like, and I would think that when he said that, after he said it, because I internalized, when I got up there, I would look around and I would swear everybody was ready to laugh at me. Are you with me? Oh, you're my, Donna is so sweet. practice makes perfect. Thank you, son.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. The more you do,
Right. But could it be that the enemy was using him to make me close my mouth, not want to do it anymore? To make me throw in the towel? Could it been a tactic of could he been used by, I don't really want to say that he did it on purpose to try to stop me, but could it be that the enemy used him as a form to stop me, to have me so scared and so, what's the word I'm using? I wanted, so scared and petrified that I didn't want to move forward. Any questions? Hey, Kim Grounds, I've carried thing around from childhood that have played throughout my day. Yes, words. When people used to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie from the pits of hell. Words will hurt you. Right. Yeah. And some people under the sound of my voice, Kim, not only just you, there's a lot of people still carrying around childhood trauma because of something that somebody's mama said to them, a babysitter said to them, or some mean kid on the playground said to them, a teacher said to them, a sibling said to them. I'm still scarred from stuff my brother said to me. Right? I remember here's one. I used to get teased about my big lips. Soup coolers, and I had a family member that used to, I guess I used to hold my mouth open when I would watch TV, and they would come and do me like this. And for a long time, I was self-conscious about my lips. But honey, they buying these now. They in style now. Ain't no injections in these, buddy. Soup cooler, that's right. People duck lipping now. They taking pictures with it. Right? Right. Yeah. It's Donovan says it's definitely a lie because, as I once said, the tongue is a deadlier sword than the sword itself. You're right. That's right, Deborah. God called us. He's going to equip us. I had to learn that. I had to learn that. But there is people that the enemy uses to silence you, to get you to quit. There's somebody maybe wanting to open up a business, but because somebody said something to them, now they second guessing themselves. They're like, oh, maybe I should rethink this. I don't have what it takes. Okay? And so, that's right, Lisa, the word, y'all talking on here tonight. Okay. All right, I think I'm caught up. If I haven't, Nene, let me know who I missed. All right, so, what time is it? Oh, we might have to do part 2. And so she takes the bait. And so despite knowing what to expect from her taunts year after year, Hannah still took the bait. She allowed her adversary's words to deeply affect her, leading to feelings of inadequacy, sorrow, and hopelessness. And so the enemy knows exactly what to point out to get a reaction, right? He knows exactly what to do to get a reaction. By exploiting our vulnerabilities to cause us the most harm. So when I was a little kid, if I didn't have, remember when people used to talk about people with the big eye, bulging eyes or whatever? No, 4 eyes. I just became 4 eyes within the last, 10 years. But back in the day, remember people used to call you 4 eyes, whatever. But I didn't wear glasses back then. So the enemy couldn't provoke me with 4 eyes because I knew the truth. I don't wear glasses, I can see, But he knew, talk about her lips. So then, do y'all know that, back to that lip thing, I used to take pictures like this, trying to hold my lips in because I was too embarrassed because of what somebody taunted me about. And so what I'm saying here is the enemy knows, he studies us. He knows exactly what to say and what to do to get a reaction. Just like there's people that we may live with. They know exactly what to say or do to get a reaction. And so that was the wrong approach. She took the bait. But not only that, she allowed her to get in her head, So remember when I told you that was said to me, and I thought I let it roll off my back about the 4 kids? But over time, I let that get in my head. You get in your head. Y'all know what I mean when I say get in your head? And so she allowed Penina to get in her head, causing an emotional and mental impact. And that's what happens also when you're dealing with childhood trauma. What was said to you as a kid over the years has gotten in your mind. And where do we start? But where do our beliefs come from?
Parents.
How you're raised.
From your mind is what you think. You believe from where? Your mind. It kind of stems from your thoughts, right? And for Christians, we believe through faith, right? But it's what we believe because of what we think, right? Because what we've been told, Jesus came and all that, right? And so she has allowed her to get in her mind, and when you get in somebody's mind, it starts affecting how you feel, how you respond, okay? So this caused an emotional and mental impact. In other words, Hannah let Penina taunting deeply affect her thoughts and feelings, so much so that it took an emotional toll on her, so much so that toll was severe. And guess what? Her distress was not short-lived. This was not a one-off. This was not a one-time taunt. This was over and over. The person that called me James Brown preaching, it wasn't a one-time discussion where we laughed it off. This was constant. But do you know what I did? Every time that person said that, I would go home and work and practice and work and practice. And what I did is, although I allowed it to affect me for a time, when that person kept critiquing me and or taunting me or whatever, I would go home and I would practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And to this day, I'm still practicing. You guys are letting me practice. Because I understood that I want to be better. And it was true. I was stuttering. I was tongue-tied and things like that. So sometimes their taunting is a gift in disguise, because it allowed me, they might have made it from a malicious place, but it was a gift to me because it caused me to practice. So, not only that, her response to the taunts caused a change in her behavior. This emotional, mental toll affected Hannah's behavior so much so that she wept and she couldn't eat. Ain't that a change in your behavior? I don't want nothing to mess me up from eating, because I enjoy me a good eating meal. I like being part of the eating ministry. Matter of fact, it's a few of us. We got a ministry Saturday. We got a ministry day Saturday. We're gonna be eating. The eating ministry. And so this taunt, her approach to this taunt has affected her behavior. Now she can't eat. All she's doing is crying, and she has a loss of appetite. All right. And notice the timing of this taunting and provoking. Notice that it says that every time they would go up to the place of worship. The only time that this woman did this was when they were in the place of worship. Year after year, she would wait until they got there, and she would taunt this woman. She would provoke this woman. That's interesting, isn't it? Look at the timing and the place. These taunts occurred every year when they went up to the house of the Lord, which suggests that the enemy not only wanted to steal Hannah's peace or kill her joy or destroy her sense of worth, but perhaps also wanted to keep Hannah from worshiping and enjoying fellowship. So if I got her all twisted up where she's crying and she can't eat, and she's in the house of worship, and she's at the place of worship, what do we do when we go to the house of worship? What is it for? It's for us to worship God.
Yes.
So this is affecting her spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And so perhaps the enemy is using this woman because he wants to steal. What is he here for? What is the purpose? Steal, kill, and destroy. He don't want her worshiping. He want her tied up in knots. He want her to be paralyzed and not moving forward. Look at the timing. And the same is true for us. Are we going to church Sunday after Sunday, but we allow the enemy to taunt us so much so that it's affecting our worship? Yes, we're in the place, but are we really worshiping? Are we really praising? Are we really sacrificing? Are we really fellowshipping? Some of us got the worshiping part down pat. We got it down to the sign, but we ain't fellowshipping with nobody. We hitting that parking lot so quick. I'm sorry. Nene, help me keep Sticks and Stones Hills words sometimes. I'm way behind y'all. Nene, you could tell me.
Yes.
Kim said, I remember Moses had to speak from to me and Moses. But yeah, look at the timing of it. And that's how the devil don't play fair. So could it be perhaps he was after her worship? After her, when they're supposed to be fellowship, this is a peace offering. They're sitting down to a meal. That's a fellowship. That's a peace offering. So he's robbing her. Oh, there it is. She's sitting down to a peace offering. Peace between, that represents peace between them and God. And here she is in a time where there should be peace. She's weeping. Have you ever been weeping or robbed of your peace where you're surrounded by everybody else and everybody else is fellowship and everybody else is going on through life, but there you are, depressed, triggered by trauma, paralyzed, can't do nothing, can't eat, can't sleep because of what somebody else has done to you? Any questions? Where's my invitation? Donovan, I'm not sure what that.
He was talking about when the eating ministry.
Oh, it's the ladies is going out, Donovan. And so notice that the taunts occurred every year when they went up to the house of the Lord, which suggests that he wasn't just trying to steal her peace or kill her joy or her sense of worth, but perhaps he was robbing her of her worship. Well, he did rob her of her worship and enjoying fellowship. So perhaps this was aimed at disrupting her spiritual connection and preventing her from finding peace in worship. You ever been at church and you just ain't at peace? Sometimes we can just be going just out of habit, but we're sitting in the pews and our lives is filled, and our hearts, our soul is filled with such chaos. We got so much going on in our mind. We're depressed, we're anxious, and people we do go to church. People are sitting in pews and struggling. All right. And not only that, look at this. This distress has become a repetitive cycle. So each year, she is being provoked, renews her feelings of sorrow and hopelessness. Perhaps, every year she goes up, this happens, she weeps, she can't eat, but then by the time she get home, maybe she bounces back. But this is a repetitive cycle. Every year, this is a renewed trigger. And so, we see that her approach to the taunts haven't changed. So she's consistently responding wrong. Every year, she's still responding in the same way. What do they call a person who keeps doing the same thing over and over, hoping to get a different result? Every year that you go up there, she does what she does, and you continue to respond the way you do. But before we start looking at her sideways, how many times do someone know how to push our button, and we continue to respond in the same way. We continue to go off, we continue to cuss them out, we continue to do all of that. We continue to cry, we continue to run up on them, we continue to what? Every year, every time that taunting come, or that person is provoking, or that person says something out the way to us, we keep responding to the same exact way. I think I was teaching, it kind of reminds me, Lisa, Mom, and Jack June, on Sunday when I was preaching with regards to David. David was fresh, he was new, he was his role of king, he was just getting started as king, and he was in a fight with the Philistines. And what happened is, the first time before he went to fight, he sought God. He asked God, shall I go up against them, and will I be successful? And God was like, yep, do it, go confront them straight up. But then the Philistines came back a second time, wanted to fight again. They didn't change their position. They came to the same spot. They wanted to do the same thing that they did the last time. But here's the thing, the Philistines got beat. But they continue to respond in the same way. They continue to show up in the same way. How is it that you get your butt kicked in a fight, but then you come back the exact same way you did the last time you got beat up? I think if you want a chance at winning, you need to switch some things up, right? And so here she's in this repetitive cycle, and she keeps showing up like the Philistines, and she keeps responding the same way that she did in the past. Are we like her tonight? Are we still responding in those same way, and ain't nothing changed? That's right, Deborah. We continue to fall in Satan's trap. And so she's in this repetitive cycle. So she's still responding. Her approach to this is still wrong. And so this thing has robbed her of, this ongoing trauma has robbed her of her peace. It has an impact on her faith and all of that. And so, y'all ready for some good news?
Yeah.
But then one year, there was a turning point in her life. Are y'all with me? There was a turning point. She had a decision. She made a decision to change her approach. And so look at verse 11. It says that she went into prayer. In this particular time when she's up there, the same situation is happening, but then she stands up and she goes into the house of the Lord. And it says, and she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thy handmaid, but will give unto thy handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. So now she's approaching this situation with prayer. She's taking her distress. She's taking how she feels about herself. She's taking her request and she's taking it to God. Do y'all see that? She's taking it from a wrong approach. She's making a decision to do something different, because what she is recognizing is that I done this year after year and I keep getting the same results. So now I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to go to God, because remember early on when we read, it was God who shut her womb. So if it's God that shut her womb, then it has to be God that's going to open it. Because what does the Bible say about God? Anything that he opens, no man can shut, and anything he shut, no man can open. I hope that's Bible. So if he shut it, we can't go up there and I'm going to open it up myself. How many times have God shut something and we try to open it and can't get in there? If God shut the door on a job, guess what? You ain't getting back in there. If he shut the door on a relationship, guess what? You ain't getting back in there. So if he shut the wound, then he has to be the one to open it up. So she's going to the right one who can help her. But far too often what we do is we go on to the wrong people for the solution. God is the only one that can fix this situation. I don't care how many times her and Eli or Elkanah do what they do, grown folk stuff. I don't care if he flip her up, turn her, swirl her around, however he want to do it. If the Lord has shut the wound, there ain't nothing the husband can do to open it back up. Period. Point blank. And so, hey Tiffany. And so, God is the one that can has to open it. And so she changed. There's this turning point that she has in her life, and the same is true for us. If we've been approaching things the wrong way, can this serve tonight as an example that we too need to have a turning point in our own lives on how we respond to things, how we are approaching things. If we keep getting the same result over and over and over again, and we're caught in this repetitive cycle of approaching things the wrong way, tonight is a great night for us to, ooh, guess what I just did? Undoing. Ain't that what this does? You don't have to follow me. We've been doing this, it's time to do this. Undo it. Undo it. It's time to make better choices. It's time to approach things a better way. And so Hannah decided to change her approach. Instead of remaining in the state of distress, she chose to bring her pain and her desires before God in prayer and petition, making a significant shift in her approach. Philippians 4:6 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by what? Prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart. Don't you like that? Yes. Guard your heart and your mind. Guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. And so Hannah's right approach. Again, she's praying to God and she's laying it all out there for him. And so she's making a vow to God, and that's demonstrating her faith in God's power to change her situation. And she's committing in her commitment to his will, reflecting on a proactive approach. Again, it was God that closed the womb, so she went to the right person. Any questions? We're at 8 o'clock, so let's get ready to wrap this up. And so, the lessons learned here tonight is we need to start seeking God instead of responding to issues in the same way that we've been doing it. So we've been doing it wrong. Tonight, we're going to make a decision to do it right. In one moment, her whole life changed because she made a decision to approach it the right way. Okay? And then we need to understand the power of prayer. Prayer was the catalyst for Hannah. It undid her bitterness, because when she left from out of prayer, girlfriend went and ate. She was hungry. She went and ate. So it undid her bitterness. It brought her peace and transformed her outlook. And remember, God hadn't blessed her with the son yet. She left from out of the place of worship after she prayed, meaning that she laid it all down for God. She laid her prayer there. She made her petition. Her petition was what she wanted. She told God exactly. She said, amen, child. She told him exactly what she wanted. And then she, in her sacrifice, said, if you give him to me, I'll give him back to you. Mm-hmm. After she got done doing what she was doing at prayer, girlfriend left out of there. She had peace. She was able to, the next day they went back to worship. She worshiped and she was eating. So she got her appetite back. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. And so also what we see here is the transformation through faith. And she said, let thy handmaid find grace in thy sight. And so she went her way and she ate, and her countenance was no more sad. Hannah's faith, strengthened through prayer, changed her outcome from despair, y'all see the undoing, to joy. And so prayer was a transformative force in her life. It changed how she dealt with her emotions, her barrenness, turning her bitterness into peace, and her despair to joy by seeking God in prayer. But as I close here, what I want to close here by saying is, also it's a timing thing, because the Lord did open her womb. So we have to also make sure that we understand God's timing. The Bible is filled with women who started off where it looked like they were barren. We have Sarah. Remember, she tried to help God along because but eventually God opened her womb. She was able to produce. Elizabeth, she was barren at one time, produced. Hannah produced. It's timing. But not only that, the enemy was on her so tough like she is because Hannah ended up birthing one of the greatest prophetic ministries ever.
Yes.
I say that in a symbolic way because she gave birth to Samuel, and Samuel was known as a prophet that didn't miss. Y'all know what I mean by that in the Christian world? That meant that every word that he spoken did not fall to the ground. His prophetic ministry was authentic. So what Hannah did is she symbolically was giving birth to prophetic ministry. So why wouldn't the enemy be after her? So the question I ask is, who is the adversary in our lives, or who is the adversary using in our lives to try to, they can't hinder us from conceiving and birthing, but they can make us miserable during the process. Any questions? Thanks for hanging out. We're a little bit past